Hello, everyone. Welcome to Friday's ESPN FC Live. My name is Mark Donaldson. Delighted to be joined by Mark Ogden and Luis Miguel Echegaray. There's only one place to start, and that is with Liverpool against Manchester City, the game of the weekend in Europe, first against second in the table. Before we get to Pep and to Jurgen's comments from earlier, Augie, you were at Klopp's press conference. It's blown up over the past few days regarding an interview given by Trent Alexander-Arnold to the excellent 442 magazine. Now, Trent's said what Trent has said, but there's been some reaction from both Erling Haaland and Ruben Dias, but not from Pep Guardiola. Can you put this into context for us, please, Augie? What's been said and what's the reaction been?
Yeah, so Trent Alexander-Arnold, who, as we know, is a Liverpool born and bred, Liverpool fan as a kid, came through the ranks. He's given an interview where he said that Liverpool's success in recent years, albeit less than Man City's success in terms of trophies won, that it means more because of the way Liverpool did it, because they've had to, in many ways, fight for it, build a team, whereas he said that Man City is a machine that's made to win, and he suggested that, you know, because of the financial wealth they have at City, that what Liverpool have done means more, because I guess, to paraphrase, they've had to overcome the kind of adversity that City haven't had to overcome. You know, Liverpool have had to overcome a formidable opponent in Man City to win things, whereas City have had, you know, the best manager in the world, they've got the best striker in the world, they've probably got the wealthiest owners in the world. So whatever City win has been done. It has been done because they've got very wealthy owners. But let's be honest, they've also spent very wisely. So they've hired the right coach, they've made the right signings in the market. Other clubs have spent more. Chelsea, for instance, other clubs like Man United spent almost as much and not had anything like the success. So City have spent wisely, but they do have big advantages which Liverpool haven't had. So that was Alexander-Arnold's point, that what Liverpool have done has been remarkable in terms they've done it despite Man City. But obviously Erling Haaland and Ruben Dias have hit back, as you'd expect them to do. But it just looks a little bit like that Alexander-Arnold's comments have got under City's skin a little bit, because I do know that while City have been an amazing team under Pep Guardiola, there is a mindset amongst the supporters and people, some of the people at the club, that they haven't had the credit that they have deserved for their achievements over the years. They've not had the love that maybe they want. Whenever Liverpool win something on Man United, you know, we do go into overdrive as the media, talking about how great it is because they're the biggest clubs, they're the most successful clubs, they're the biggest fan base, they've got the greatest stories. And City feel that at times they get overlooked. So that's the context that Alexander-Arnold has maybe caught a nerve ahead of the biggest game of the season.
Yeah, it is. We'll get LME's thoughts on the reaction of both Jurgen and Pep after we hear from both managers.
But he's born in Liverpool. He stood on the bins before he played for the club. He played through all youth teams. And what would you think in that situation? One of our slogans, what I love, is "This means more," and it means more to us. We have no clue exactly what 100% what it means to other people, but what happens here means more to us. We had 2 years ago a parade after winning the League Cup and the FA Cup, losing the Champions League final the night before, losing the league for a point. Tell me a city where you have a parade and it looks like we won all these trophies without having them. That's the club is special to us. If it's not special to other people, I cannot change that. But that when we feel it like that, why shouldn't we be allowed to say it?
They defend the club not responding this guy, what they have done many years on the pitch, every single 3 days. That is the best way. So if we have done it, I could answer him, but why? So, honestly. So it's what it is. It's very incredible. Proud to what we have done, and the way is not needs that to prove me my players what really feels, what really are. Unite to try to do it.
Okay, I like Pep's response here. He was basically asked about it. He said, "I wish him well. I hope he has a speedy recovery from his injury. Next question." And then he was pressed on this. Okay, let's cut to the chase. LME. Augie thinks that Trent's comments on Liverpool may be getting under City's skin ahead of this game. What do you reckon?
I'm glad, and I hope they get under the skin. And I kind of, listen, as a Peruvian who loves telenovelas, like, I want more drama here. Go for it, Trent Alexander-Arnold. Just go further on. say they have no right celebrating as much as we do. It means so much more for Liverpool. And then Man City on their side can put Phil Foden in front and say, how about this kid from Stockport who joined Manchester City when he was 4? What does it mean to him when he wins the Premier League? So, I want a little bit more fire in this rivalry, the two best teams in the Premier League, arguably in Europe. And, let's make it more dramatic. That's what I want. I mean, I think there's also two arguments here. One is, okay, how much more does it mean to one side than the other one? But I don't think you should take away the fact that a Manchester City fan that's gone through hell and back, just like Mark Ogden said, that sometimes they feel overlooked because of their neighbors on the red side of Manchester have been paid so much attention, specifically in the 90s when Man City was struggling themselves, and means a lot to them as well. History is an important part of this context, but I want more fire. I want somebody from Man City to just be like, you know what, Trent, shut it. It means much more to us as well because we've got local kids who are professionals in the first team. Let's get it on. And then I'll just be eating my popcorn, salivating all of it.
That's the thing. I mean, the bottom line is you do your talking on the pitch. Okay, I'm just intrigued if Coronation Street was a telenovela, what that would be like. But let's not go down that road. You spoke to Klopp at the press conference this week ahead of this game. Let's focus more on the game because everyone will be watching this weekend. It's a fantastic one. Any little nuggets you picked up from the press conference? Any team news or Mohamed Salah, will he start? What did you learn this morning?
Well, the big doubt for Liverpool is Konate. He went off last night during the game against Sparta Prague. Now, it looks like he's going to be unlikely to be fit, but Salah, obviously we know that Salah and Dominic Szoboszlai came on in the final stages against Sparta, and that for me was the big thing in the sense that Klopp's got them back on the pitch, and psychologically they now know that when they step out of the pitch against City at the weekend, it's not their first game back. They've got some minutes under the belt, so I think both those guys will play. And I think, we know that they've missed Salah, but Szoboszlai has been a really big player for Liverpool this season, and they have missed him recently, despite the fact results wouldn't suggest it. They really have in the sense of what he brings to the game against the top teams. They missed him against Arsenal, for instance. So, they're the big returns for me. But, I thought Klopp was in a really upbeat, relaxed mood today, and he was smiling all the way through the Trent Alexander-Arnold question. I wouldn't say that he's showing that kind of, relaxation that he would have because he's leaving at the end of the season, because obviously he wants to win the title, but he was very kind of complimentary at Pep, saying that Pep's the greatest manager in the world, and I actually said to him, look, why are you saying that? Why is he better than you? And he couldn't really answer it. He said, well, maybe it's a matter of taste. Some people like the way I play, other players people like the way that Pep plays, but I think Klopp, to be fair, is a world-class manager, and I wouldn't say it's a slam dunk in the sense that Pep is the greatest manager in the world, because Klopp has had to work to different restrictions, had a different mentality. He's not had the advantage that Pep's maybe had over the years at Barcelona and at Bayern Munich. He had Borussia Dortmund, a club that had to fight against Bayern. When he arrived at Liverpool, they were nowhere near competitive. So, Klopp undersells himself a little bit there. Maybe that's part of the mind games. Mm-hmm. We haven't had enough mind games. As LME said, mind games in the Premier League are great. Managers and coaches trying to get under each other's skin, try to unnerve each other. And I think Klopp's demeanour today suggested that Liverpool are in a really good place. And I think he knows that when the game starts at the weekend, Anfield will be noisy. City don't like going there. They've got a really poor record there. So maybe the smiling Klopp is the dangerous Klopp, because it means that he's ready for it. And I think that Liverpool know that this is their big chance to take a massive stride toward the title.
You spoke about that record, and LME, 2 goals from Gundogan, 1 from Raheem Sterling, and 1 from Phil Foden. And Manchester City win 4-1 at Anfield in 2021. They haven't got any other league wins at Anfield since 2003. Why is that?
Well, and that 2021 February win, by the way, was in an empty Anfield as well. So I don't know if you want to add some context to that. But here's another one for you. 2 Premier League matches, only 2 out of the last 30 between Liverpool and Man City have been wins for the away side. So I think that says a lot. And also, I think it says a lot about the fact that Liverpool have dominated in terms of when they host this specific game. And I think the answer to your question is actually pretty simple. Anfield, to me, is one of the most hostile grounds for any visiting team. And you, as the opponent, have to be ready. No doubt about it. Manchester City and Pep Guardiola will always feel like they're ready. But I think the emotional connotations of specifically what's going to happen this weekend, which is Jurgen Klopp's final Premier League encounter against Man City in the Premier League at Anfield, is going to mean a lot. I think Augie mentioned it a little bit here, and I'll echo it. I think that this game this weekend will feel like a final for Liverpool because of all the emotional baggage that comes with it. And I think that from the records, statistically speaking, the fact that only 2 wins have come to the away side in the last 30 Premier League matches on both sides at the Etihad and Anfield says a lot about how that crowd is a 12th man. So I expect exactly the same thing this weekend. And like Augie said, Jurgen Klopp feels relaxed because I think his team know exactly what they need to do. Will it happen? That's another question, but I think they'll be more than ready for it.
Augie, let's group City's next 2 league games together at Anfield and at home to Arsenal. Privately, if you sat down with Pep Guardiola and said, I'm going to give you 4 points, doesn't matter how you get them, 1 draw and 1 win, where it is, whether it's at Anfield, your win and a draw against Arsenal at home or vice versa, does he take that?
I think he'd take it if it meant that the win was at Anfield. I do think that a draw at Anfield leaves them behind Liverpool, doesn't it? And I think that is the problem, because Liverpool, for me, are not going to drop many more points. So City really need to get ahead of them at some point. So, 4 points, I think they need 6. I think both teams need to win this game to have a real. Obviously, they've both got a chance to title, but if they want to be favourites, if they want to kind of make it them in pole position, they have to win, because a draw means that Liverpool just remain a point ahead and City are nibbling away. But City will know that Liverpool might not lose any more points. They played at Arsenal, they played at Tottenham, so they've got some very big games out of the way. So Liverpool could go from this point on and win every game. Unlikely, but teams have done it. So City need to win. They need to win this game. And if they win this game, then a draw at home to Arsenal might be okay. But knowing Pep Guardiola as we do, they want to win both and score lots of goals at the same time.
It should be a good one. We're expecting goals, and I don't think we'll get a repeat of the Man United Liverpool game at Anfield a few weeks ago, which was 0-0 because United just went and parked the bus and they got what they were looking for. At their best, LME, who's a better team, Liverpool or Manchester City?
Manchester City. Just the overall look of the depth of the squad. And now that they're all healthy, it has to be Manchester City because their spine is just so wonderfully threatening. You've got Ruben Dias, Kevin De Bruyne, Erling Haaland, that just controls so much. And then whenever one of them doesn't work, you have somebody else that can live up to it, like Julian Alvarez, who's a key component as well, Bernardo Silva, of course, and Phil Foden, who alongside Ollie Watkins is the best player in the Premier League right now. So I would go with Manchester City. But the fact that this is at Anfield, the fact that this is Jurgen Klopp's final game against Man City at Anfield, the fact that Mohamed Salah is back and Dominic Szoboszlai as well, and Darwin Núñez feeling and Luis Diaz, this is going to be a really, really good game. But Man City, to me, are on paper the stronger team.
Augie?
Yeah, it's a tough one, this. Can I answer in a different kind of? Because I don't think you can separate the two teams who's the best. If you had to say you can buy a season ticket at one of these clubs, which would it be? I would go for Liverpool because I just think
because it's cheaper.
I just think that they're a more exciting team to watch, and maybe that's because they're not as good as City. Maybe they've got more flaws, and maybe that they leave you guessing a little bit more. With City, they can be so ruthless that I'm not going to use the Gary Neville word when he said they were boring, but it can be quite predictable that if City get ahead, it's ruthless and it's entertaining only if you're a City fan. I think with Liverpool, you go to a game sometimes not knowing what can happen. That makes it more exciting. In Liverpool that they could be 3-2 down with 5 minutes to go and win 4-3. And City could do that as well. But I just think Liverpool have got a bit more, there's a bit more stardust, a bit more, it's hard to put your finger on it, but Liverpool for me are a more exciting team. And I think the way they play, they take more chances. City don't really take many chances because they control games so much. But obviously, who's the best team? Well, the different styles, aren't they? The different styles. But if you had to say to me, you've got a free season ticket at each team. No, I'm not paying for it now. It's a free season ticket. I'd take the one at Anfield.
The analogy I would give you, and LME, you spend a fair bit of time in the UK. We've got a lot of viewers as well who are not in the United Kingdom. I'm going to give you a snooker analogy. For me, Manchester City are Stephen Hendry, and Liverpool are maybe Ronnie O'Sullivan, and that they both won the same number of titles, but when Stephen Hendry was in his prime, he was pretty much unbeatable, and you just couldn't really find a way. And Ronnie O'Sullivan came with the flair, but you just didn't know what you were going to get. So I totally get what you're saying. And as far as the league title is concerned, LME, with regards to after this one, Who's got the easier running? And who do you expect, as Oggy said, to drop fewer points between now and the end of the season?
Well, let's have a look, shall we? I mean, Oggy mentioned the schedule specifically from Liverpool side, but one thing I wouldn't say worried, that's the wrong word, but one thing I'm just looking ahead is that because they're still going for, other trophies, including the FA Cup, the Champions League, they've won the Carabao Cup, and they are still dealing with some injuries. I'm hoping from a Liverpool fan's perspective that they stay healthy, because that schedule is overloaded with European competition. Of course, they got they still got to play Manchester United in the quarterfinals. Brighton's not going to be easy. Manchester United at Old Trafford. They got Tottenham, Villa at Villa Park as well. And, there's a lot of important games there for Liverpool, and making sure that they stay healthy is a key component. And when you look at Manchester City, Arsenal, Brighton again, they also have to play Villa, Tottenham, and then the schedule gets a little bit easier, and then the Champions League, of course. So I think that Liverpool have to do everything they can to maintain this momentum and make sure that they stay healthy. But the run specifically is easier for Manchester City. Mm-hmm. So Liverpool really have to win this, I think.
Yeah, just finally on this game, looking at the last 4 matches of the season for both of these two teams, Liverpool at West Ham, Oggy, home to Spurs, at Villa, and then home to Wolverhampton. For Manchester City, their last 4 sound a lot better. Away to Forest, home to Wolves, away to Fulham, and home to West Ham. So I know managers say I'm going to take each game as it comes, one at a time, not looking ahead. When you look at those last 4 fixtures, I would be amazed if City were to drop points. And pressure does weird things to you. You might start to think, if you're Jurgen Klopp, and let's not forget Arsenal, of course, because they're in the title race as well, it might be a good point for us. However, with the fixture still to come, maybe it's worth pushing ahead a little bit. And that might start this weekend for Liverpool against Manchester City, Oggy.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, those final 4 games are, City will get 12 points. We know that. We can say that right away. They will get 12 points from those games. That's what happens with Man City. As I was saying before, they are ruthlessly predictable. Liverpool, you would never rule them out, but they are tough games. Villa away, tough game. That could be Villa, pushing to clinch top 4. So, you can't underestimate or overstate how big that game will be. But it is all about momentum as well. And I think, let's say that City, for instance, that, they could get a double header against Arsenal in the Champions League, double header quarter final against Arsenal, playing in the league, three meetings against the same team in less than a couple of weeks. That could drain their resources as well. So a lot depends on how City go in the Champions League. I think Liverpool, the Europa League, that in many ways could be almost like a rest period, because they're so strong, unless they get maybe by a Leverkusen, that Liverpool could beat anybody with half a team in that competition anyway. So if they feel that it's draining their resources, they could take it easy. City can't do that in the Champions League. The Champions League has to be 100% all the time. So Liverpool might have an advantage, but it really does depend on what happens on Sunday. The team that comes out of this game on top are the favourites, and that is because they're so good.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and we'll have full reaction to Liverpool against Manchester City. I'll be joined by our ESPN colleagues right after the game for a live stream on YouTube. So that's on Sunday, but there's plenty more action this weekend. There's a really good one. I sounded very DJ there. Smashy United, plenty more action this weekend. Don't want to go down that road. Villa, your boys at LME against Spurs. There's a 5-point gap right now between the two sides. Villa in 4th and Spurs in 5th. If Villa win it, is that 4th place pretty much sewn up this weekend?
No, because both teams still have to play the top 3 best teams in the Premier League, in Manchester City, Liverpool, and Arsenal, and that's 9 points right there. And even though Villa still have that lead, Tottenham still have also a game in hand, but it is a massive win, and it will mean a lot of great momentum for Aston Villa and Unai Emery, because obviously a victory against Tottenham, who's directly just below, will just create that cushion a little bit larger. I mean, there's a few things that I'm looking at here when it comes to this game. Villa come into this with 3 straight victories from the Premier League, but none of those teams are from the top 10. So now they're facing a much better opponent, with all due respect to the last 3 that Villa just played. Heung-min Son's return scares the hell out of me, because he scores against Villa just every time he blinks. I think it's 5 goals in the last 3 matches, but Villa have won the last 3 matches against Tottenham as well, including the previous one 2-1. And some players are coming back, but Villa still dealing with injuries, including 3 ACLs as well. And Tottenham also dealing with some absences as well. But this is a very, very, very big game. But if you ask me, whoever wins this means if Villa win it, will they solidify that 4th place? It will become much stronger. It will be more cemented. But the fact that we still have to play Manchester City, Liverpool, and Arsenal still means that this job continues for Aston Villa.
Okay, I'm looking at Aston Villa's home form in the Premier League, and they had a bit of a blip, drawing at home to Sheffield United, losing at home to Newcastle, losing at home to Manchester United. With regards to this one and the form that both sides are in, Villa, I suppose, are favourites because they're 5 points clear, but with Spurs getting their injured players all back now, the likes of Maddison and Heung-min Son's come back from the Asian Cup, is it a favourite for you in this game with the squads available to both coaches?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Villa, and purely because I think, and this is kind of, it's related but unrelated to the game, I think Man United losing the last 2 games has kind of given Villa and Spurs quite a bit of breathing space now, because it looks, barring some very strange run of results, that 5th place will get a Premier League spot in the Champions League. So Villa and Spurs are pretty much safe. That I don't see anybody overtaken to get 5th. So for me, this game for Villa is, if they win it, I think they're nailed on for the Champions League, because they will not slip up, they will not concede 5th place. So there's a bit of almost a sense of relaxation about Villa in this. The pressure is off. And it might, me as a Villa fan might think that's kind of counterintuitive, but I think the pressure is more on Tottenham, because they've still got to put Man United away, really. United are 6 points behind, having played the game more. And it's unlikely that they will catch Spurs, but I think Spurs need to just kind of really kind of seal the deal there. But I think Villa have done that already. So I think that, for me, Villa, it's a free hit for Villa. They win this game through the Champions League. If they don't win the game, they've still got a really good chance. So there's a bit of breathing space there. And I think that when a team plays with that kind of sense, they need pressure, but when they've got that sense of relaxation after being under pressure, I think it can be a big thing. And obviously, they've got Ollie Watkins, who is probably the most unsung player in the Premier League outside of Villa, because if he was playing for one of the traditional big 6, he'd be getting rave reviews. Because he plays with Villa, he flies under the radar a little bit, and he shouldn't do, because he's had a great season.
Another reason to like this game, Lemmy, is because of the way that Spurs play on their travels. Now, Villa, we know, will have a go, but the likes of Wolves and others have gone to Spurs, and some of them have sat in. Wolves got a great result, but you have that difficulty at time of Spurs maybe trying to break down teams. That's not going to be the case when you've got a Villa side that will come forward. In Spurs' last 4 games, they've scored at least 2 goals in each of them. Well, exactly 2 in that, and they scored 3 before that. So I think we know that there's going to be goals in this, but which defense, the way they are right now, do you like the best, LME?
Well, it's tough because, as you mentioned, I really don't see a clean sheet regardless in any side. And Tottenham, just because of Postecoglou's gung-ho system, all-out aggressiveness, specifically the game that we saw previously when Villa won 2-1, what happens during a game with Tottenham, and you saw it against Palace because Palace took the lead, what happens is, because there's so much commitment in that final third, there are huge gaps for the opponent to take advantage of. And I think Unai Emery's number one responsibility will be to make sure that whenever Tottenham lose that ball, they can go forward. I think the fact that Pau Torres is available for this game, Unai Emery confirmed in his press conference, so that gives every Villa fan a little sentiment of calmness as well. Ezri Konsa as well, he's back as well. And, you know, Matty Cash has been playing well, who will be able to exploit that width. Now, for Tottenham, Pedro Porro comes back, so you're going to see that fast forward line from Tottenham. So in many ways, I'm sort of gambling and hoping, from the bias perspective, on the fact that Villa's defensiveness when they have the ball and immediately when they lose it is a little bit stronger of Tottenham's, just because Postecoglou's system is, no matter what happens, whether we're 1-0 down, 2-0 down, we're going to go all out. And by the way, Tottenham have only won 1 of their last 6 away Premier League matches, despite scoring 2 or more goals. So that means that Tottenham can score, but it also means that they can concede probably a little bit more. So I'm going to go with Villa's defensive side, specifically at home at Villa Park.
Oh, the good games keep coming this weekend in the Premier League. Chelsea against Newcastle, and losses of 163 million combined, Augie. Now, you wrote a piece about this, basically saying that Pochettino and Eddie Howe could be spared the sack, because that's unlikely to happen. But if those two teams decide to go elsewhere and look for another coach somewhere down the line, the payoffs might not be doable because of the way that they've spent their money. And that's in your article. What was the gist of the article as a whole and where these two sides sit financially?
Yeah, well, I suppose, going into this game on Monday night, people will be thinking, oh, if the manager loses this game, they're going to be under real pressure because both have, they've underperformed massively this season. I mean, they've both had, issues in terms of injuries or, players off form. But the reality is they've both really underperformed and not met the expectations. So had there been or if there's a guy that loses on Monday, it could fear for his job. But the point I was making, and you were saying it wouldn't save them from the sack. I think what has happened off the pitch financially could actually save them, both Pochettino and Howe, from the sack, because Chelsea can't afford to rip it up and start again because they've got massive debts. They need not massive debts, but massive losses, £90 million. They've invested in lots of players. They have to let it settle down now, and they can't afford to pay up another manager and start again because you're probably looking at maybe a £30 million payoff in terms of paying up Pochettino and hiring a new guy. They haven't got that money to play with, especially with the fact that they are having to comply with the Premier League's PSR rules, which are limited to £105 million losses over 3 years. So Chelsea getting very close to that, and that could lead to points reduction. And it's the same with Newcastle as well, because it's slightly different with Newcastle in the sense that the Saudi Arabian takeover over 2 years ago, they have invested money, but they can't invest over the top because they will again breach FFP PSR rules, because when they bought the club, Newcastle's commercial turnover was so small, they had no real income coming off the pitch. So Newcastle also don't have the financial headroom to make a change if they decide that Eddie Howe isn't the guy. So these two guys, both very good managers, by the way. And I think it'd be good if they do keep the jobs, because I think sometimes a manager can become a better manager after having had a difficult season. I think both these guys would certainly benefit from learning from what's happened this year and coming back next year. So ultimately, because the financial situation at both clubs is such that they've made massive losses this year, it could keep their guys in place, the managers in place, because it's the least bad option in terms of financially. So, but that's not a bad thing. I think we're all kind of sick of managers being sacked and fired because they haven't lived up to expectations, because more often than not, there are mitigating factors. Newcastle's massive injury list. Pochettino inherited a squad that isn't really balanced, and it's been bought by people that should know better but probably don't. So these two guys start next season their jobs because of the financial situation and mistakes made by people above them.
11th against 8th, LME, just 4 points separating Chelsea and Newcastle before Monday night's game. Is it a bigger game for one team more than the other?
Yeah, you said it right there. I think for Chelsea, they're 11th, MD. 11, 36 points. Yes, they have a game in hand, but if they lose this game once again, Todd Bowley's consortium and Chelsea under Mauricio Pochettino are looking at another season where it's just been a flat line. I think we talked about this a few weeks ago. And of course, a Newcastle fan will disagree with me because obviously 3 points takes them above West Ham, depending on their result, and a little bit closer to 6th spot. And, they're 10 points right now behind Tottenham, so they want to keep climbing up that table. But the fact that Chelsea Football Club, after everything that Augie just said on how much has been spent, on how much infrastructure has been placed ever since Todd Bowley's consortium came in, the fact that Chelsea are 11th and they lose this game is ridiculous. Now, the good news is that they've only lost one of their 28 home league matches against Newcastle. So historically speaking, the Blues do have the advantage here, but they need this victory more so than just in the numbers, just from an overall emotional sort of energetic perspective. Chelsea Football Club are 11th. And after all that money that's been spent, it's not acceptable.
Yeah, let's wrap this one up, Augie, with narratives. And the top of the table is Liverpool against Manchester City, huge. And obviously the race for that 4th spot with Villa against Spurs is massive as well. But I think there's a narrative here, and it goes to your excellent article, which I read this morning. You've basically got the wealthiest owners in the world, Newcastle, against the team that has spent more money than any other team in the world since Todd Bowley took over $1.2 billion. Yet, as Luis Miguel was saying, it's 11th against 8th. So for all the talk of titles and Champions League next season, this is abject failure from Chelsea given what they've spent, is it not?
Absolutely. And you look at the table, both Newcastle and Chelsea are closer to the bottom 3, the relegation zone, than they are to the top of the table, despite what we've just said, wealthy owners, massive spend. So you can't hide it, really. Both teams have failed to perform. But Chelsea, for me, I've seen them several times this season, and at times you think they're not far from getting it right. Other times you look a million miles off. I saw them at Anfield, they were destroyed by Liverpool. I saw them at Stamford Bridge against City, they got a 4-4 draw. I think if Pochettino is given the time to stay and he's allowed to bring in a couple of experienced players that can knit it all together, Chelsea will be competitive next season. But the problem with Chelsea is that it doesn't seem to be in the manager's gift to make the signings. And that is why they are having a bad season, because the signings have been made by people, sometimes non-football people, who think he's good, he'll be good, he'll be great. But the reality is, when you sign young players, if you sign 10 young players, if 5 do well and reach their potential, you've done well. 10, there's so many gaps in that recruitment strategy that any coach that comes in would find it difficult. So I do have sympathy for Pochettino, but ultimately he's a guy in the hot seat and he's paid to deliver results. But I think on these situations, because of the financial position that both clubs are in, Pochettino and Eddie Howe can breathe a little easier because they know that it's too expensive to get rid of them.
Let's finish with predictions for the 3 games that we have previewed in this half hour of ESPN FC. Let's start where we've been talking about at the Bridge on Monday. LME, who do you like, Chelsea or Newcastle?
I think I'm just going to stick from the historicals, and I think Chelsea will win this game just because they have to. It won't be a pretty game. I think it could be like 1-0, but Chelsea will win it.
Okay, Augie?
Yeah, I'm going to go with LME. I think Chelsea, but I will say that the team that scores first will probably win, because I don't see a lot of kind of resolving either of these teams, but I'm going to go for Chelsea.
Especially if it's 1-0. Team that wins first got a right good chance of getting all 3 points. Villa against Spurs. Augie, you can have this one to begin with.
I'm going to go for Villa. I just think Villa Park's a tough place to go. I know they've had a couple of drop points recently, but I still think Villa, the fans will really get behind the team. The whole end will be roaring at the weekend because they know how big a game it is. And I think when a team plays at home in a massive game, the fans really buy into it. And that's why I'm going to go for Villa. And I think that will lead into my next answer when talk about the next game.
Need I ask my friendly Peruvian villain what he thinks?
Come on now. Everything that Augie said. I think this game is too big for Unai Emery's Aston Villa to lose or to even draw. Aston Villa will be ready for it. And I think the tough game against Ajax midweek in the Conference League will be a good tester for them. And I think they'll be ready. Aston Villa, baby, 2-0.
Okay. The big one. Liverpool against Manchester City. LME, you can start.
MD, I'm a romantic. I've talked all about Jurgen Klopp's final season with Liverpool. The fact that this is the last game against Man City in the Premier League. I have to go with the home side as well, because numerically that's also the case. The home team almost always wins. I think Liverpool will be more than ready for it. Mohamed Salah will start, and I think Liverpool win this 2-1 in a great, entertaining match.
Augie, were you convinced by what Klopp had to say earlier? Enough to give the nod to the Reds, or another?
I just think that the Anfield experience for Pep Guardiola is an endurance test, and he hates it. They hate going to Anfield. They would obviously love to win there, but they have seen it so many times that the Anfield crowd, it energises the Liverpool players. But it doesn't intimidate the opposition, it energises the home side. And Liverpool players are just like, they're like frenzied individuals, and I think that will just take them over the edge. And I think City are a great team, but I just think Liverpool at home, when it all clicks at Anfield, they're really, really hard to beat. So I'm going to go for Liverpool to win this game.
Thank you, gents. Full reaction live straight after the final whistle from Anfield on Sunday. Join us on our social media channels for that. That's one reminder. And 3 more reminders now. We've got plenty La Liga action this weekend coming up from Spain, starting this afternoon. And Barcelona are in action against Mallorca. Coverage begins half an hour before kickoff at 3 Eastern with our ESPN FC pre-game show. My game commentary this weekend is a good one. Down on the coast, Cádiz against Atletico Madrid. Cádiz, their form is awful. Atleti bounced back from their cup exit at the hands of Athletic Club with a win against Betis. But will they have one eye on that game against Inter in the Champions League in midweek? That's Saturday at 10:15. And Real Madrid, the league leaders right now, haven't in the best of form of late. They're picking up results, but Celta de Vigo at home, they should beat them, shouldn't they? Coverage begins at 1 o'clock. Remember, the clocks go forward in Europe this weekend, so kickoff at 1:30. Full coverage of the Bundesliga as well. All those games on ESPN+. My thanks to LME. My thanks to Augie. Enjoy your weekend, boys and girls. Bye for now.